Okay, starting. So today we're looking at finding the equation when we're given the line. So we're sort of going backwards. So they're, in this instance, they've given us the line and they want us to set up and write the equation from it. So this is going to come up especially in Year 12 next year. So just to have a recap, remember that this A value, what was that represented? Do you remember what was that representing? The y-intercept. So what does the y-intercept mean? Where it crosses the y-axis, yeah? Okay, so that's what the A value was. And then what was this B value? Was the slope. Good. So the slope, and if you remember, the way we could find the slope or the B value was, we could pick 2 points and we could use that to find that answer. So we've got to maybe use a few of those skills now to be able to find the equation of these graphs. So it says here's the steps of doing it. So finding the equation of a straight line, it says you can identify the y-intercept. So also remember that the y-intercept, and we maybe should have wrote up here, it's when x equals 0. Okay, so you've got to check here, there's x equals 0. So down here, what is the y-intercept? The y-intercept equals, on this graph, is, where's it crossing through that y line? 2. Good. And then it says use 2 points on the graph to find the slope. So I'm going to use that 1 point that we just said. We know 0, 2. That's 1 point. Now, find a point where it's nice and easy to read off. So I'm going through that one because that one goes through, it's nice and easy. It's 3.5 and 7. So I've got 2 points. So it says use 2 points to find the slope. So we know the slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we can do that here. So I'm going to say, it depends which one. I'm going to call this first one the point 1 and this second one the point 2. So I'm going to have 7 minus 2 over 3.5 minus 0. Okay, so I end up with 5 over 3.5. So you can just pop that in on your calculator. And what does that equal? Okay, so if I do 5 divided by 3.5, I'm just going to say I'm going to round 1.4. So we've got the B value. So now we can write these into our equation. So we know that y equals a plus bx. So in this example, a is 2 and b is 1.4x. So you can see I've now found the equation. That one was the A. Oops. That was A, and this was the B value. Okay, so that is one way you can do it. You can just read it off and then do it like that. So let's have a look at this one. It says find the linear equation. So linear, when they say linear, they're just, it lets us know that we are using that y equals a plus bx, yeah? So we know it's a straight line and we can use that formula. So reading off, what is the y-intercept in this one? So remember, y-intercept's when x equals 0. So yeah, it's there. So we're going to say 200. Now we could maybe write that point down because we also need to find the b value, and we're going to use the formula for that. Okay, so I've got 1 point. I might use another point. This one looks nice. It goes through 18 and 2000. All right, so I've got an x and a y and an x and a y. So I can say 2000 minus 200 over 18 minus 0. So we end up with 1,800 over 18, which equals 100. So we've got our B value to be 100. So if I go to write, I could write this equation. I could say it's 200 plus 100x. Now, the important thing is they're not using y and x in this case. What are they using?
L.
V and
L.
and t, I think that is time. So what you do is you use those letters there. So we're going to write volume equals 200 plus 100 t. And you just change the letters to be what they have. Okay, so here we go again. Now, so we're going to find the equation of this line. So we're going to work out the y-intercept. So the y-intercept, and we know that's when x equals 0. So be careful. Sometimes you've got to make sure next year in year 12, sometimes they don't give, it's not actually the y-intercept there. The way you know it's the y-intercept because it's 0 down the bottom. So if you go through here, it's a little bit off, isn't it? So we could estimate, let's say it's halfway through 25,000 and 30,000. So what are we going to say it is?
25,500.
Yep. No.
27,500.
Yeah. So we're saying it's the halfway. Okay, so, and then we're going to find the slope, the b value, remember, so maybe I should have probably say that's our a value. So our b value, we're going to use y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, it doesn't matter which ones you use. I'm going to use this because the numbers are nicer, so I'm going to use 1 and 25,000. And I'll just use, doesn't matter, I can use the last one. I'll use the last one, 9 and 5,000. Okay, you could use that other one in the middle. It won't matter. So we call that x1, y1, x2, y2. So I have 5,000 minus 25,000 over 9 minus 1. Now, that's going to be negative 20,000 over 8. So if you do that on your calculator, we get, what do we get? Negative 25,000. Now, it's telling me the B is negative. So that means it's going, is that correct? Does the graph look negative? Yeah. Has it got a negative steepness? Yeah, it does. So that's correct. So that's a good way to check. Go, yeah, I should have a negative because the graph is going down. So now we're going to write out the equation. So remember, it's like y equals a plus bx. But I'm not going to use y. What am I going to use this time? B, because it's actually the value. So sometimes you can put the unit there because before it was volume. I probably should have put that it was mils. So I'm going to put the value in dollars equals my y-intercept, which was 27,500, plus my b, which is actually a negative, so we can just say minus b. So minus 2,500, and what is, it's not x in this case, it's t, or time. It doesn't matter, so times t. Okay, and there's the equation. Let's keep doing this one. So let's have a look here. All right, so we know we've got to find the equation. What do we think the y-intercept is?
18.
All right, we're going to say roughly 18, fair enough. And now we're going to find the b value, and we're going to use our y2 over minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, be careful, boys. You have to pick 2 points that the line is going through. So this is what we're going to see. We can see a whole heap of dots, and we're going to learn this in our next unit, which is a scatter plot. We only want the points that the line is actually going through. So I'm going to pick this one that we said, you said is 0 and 18, and I'm going to pick this one because it's got the lines going through it, okay? So, and that one would be 5 and 25. So you remember, it's got to be 2 points that the line is going through, okay? Not just any point, that line's got to be going through it. All right, so we do that. So I might call that x1, y1, x2, y2. Should my slope be negative or positive? Positive. So hopefully when I do my calculations, I get a positive number. So I get, is it 7 over 5?
Yep.
And that would be 2.5 or 1.5 even? 1.4 even? You're true? 1.4? Yes?
Do you not leave it as an improper fraction?
Nah, you can, but we don't. In general maths, we can have it. It's probably better a decimal, because look what we're talking about. We're talking about velocity. No one wants to say, you know, a fraction speed. We probably want to say a decimal speed. So we'll change it. So now remember, the basic formula is this, but we don't want to use y and x. This time I'm going to say v for velocity, and I'm going to say meters per second because that's what it's measured in. The A was 18 and B was 1.4, and I'm going to say times. Sometimes we write the word. We write times time, because we could put t times t if you like, but I'm just to show you can write the word if you like that. Okay, so what we saw when we were doing that previous method, so we had a line, okay, and say a lot of them were V and T. Okay, so when we did this, we had this line through there, and say we had this was 5 and this was 10. So we were roughly guessing what that y-intercept was. So we can actually find the equation on the calculator using our 2 points. So you know how we still use the 2 points for the slope? Well, all we need is those 2 points, and then we can pop them in the calculator and it will tell us our A and B value. So we're going to practice that here. And so they're saying, they've given us 2 points. So I'm going to pretend that's what I'm writing them on there. So you've found 2 points on your graph, and you're trying to find the equation of that, and you're going to use your calculator. So we'll go through these steps, but I'm going to flick over onto the calculator.